I'm divorcing that black bitch and giving you the whole fortune. Those chilling words whispered in a Palo Alto villa shatter the world of a brilliant black co-founder and COO of a tech empire on the cusp of its IPO. For 15 years, she poured her soul into building the company from a garage dream, enduring dismissive investors, subtle slights about her race, and a partner who erased her contributions. Betrayed by the man she trusted, she faces a plot to strip her legacy and frame her for corporate theft. But this is no story of defeat. Will she reclaim her power and redefine her future? Stick around to uncover her fight for justice. If you're hooked, subscribe to catch our latest videos and share where you're tuning in from. Let's see how far this story travels. The Palo Alto night clung to the edges of Teresa Wilson's sleek black sedan as she eased into the driveway of her modernist villa, its glass walls glinting under the moon's indifferent gaze. Exhaustion from a 3-month European odyssey, securing venture capital for Phoenix Dynamics' looming IPO, weighed on her, but anticipation sparked in her chest. She'd returned a week early, a secret kept to surprise her husband, Richard Bennett, for their 10th wedding anniversary. In her lap rested a polished ebony box, cradling gold LeBron James-signed sneakers, a tribute to the dreams they'd forged together, from a scrappy garage startup to a tech colossus. Teresa, the strategic genius behind the company's rise, envisioned Richard's boyish grin when he saw the gift, a reminder of their shared hustle and triumphs. She killed the engine, the silence of the affluent neighborhood swallowing the hum. Her heels tapped softly on the cobblestone path as she approached the front door, the box tucked under her arm. The villa, a testament to their success, loomed with its clean lines and expansive windows, a monument to the life they'd built. Teresa's key turned with a familiar click, and she stepped inside, expecting the quiet of a sleeping house. Instead, a dim glow spilled from the living room, accompanied by low murmurs and a woman's laugh. Sharp, unfamiliar, slicing through the air. Teresa froze, her pulse quickening. She set the gift box on the entryway console, its polished surface reflecting the chandelier's muted light. Moving silently, she edged toward the living room, her breath shallow. The voices grew clearer, and then, like a blade to the gut, Richard's voice cut through. I'm divorcing that black bitch and giving you the whole fortune. The words, laced with venom, hung in the air. Teresa's heart lurched, but she pressed herself against the wall, peering around the corner. There, on the leather sectional she'd chosen for its understated elegance, Richard lounged, his arm draped around Emily Carter, his 24-year-old assistant. Emily, blonde and poised in a silk dress that screamed new money, sipped wine from one of Teresa's cherished crystal glasses, a wedding gift from her late aunt. The room, once a gallery of their shared history, wedding photos, framed articles from Phoenix Dynamics' early days, had been stripped bare. In their place, a stack of IPO documents sprawled across the coffee table, each page branded with Richard Bennett, sole founder. The erasure was surgical, deliberate. Emily tilted her head, her lips curling into a smirk. This place feels like you now, she purred, tracing a finger along the glass tabletop. Her taste was so pedestrian. Richard chuckled, his hand sliding to Emily's waist. Teresa's gone. We're rebranding everything. House, company, life. The IPO's mine, and you're the future. Teresa's nails dug into her palms, the sting grounding her as rage and grief collided. 15 years of partnership, of late nights coding and pitching to skeptical investors who'd eyed her with thinly veiled disdain, reduced to this. A betrayal not just of their marriage, but of her very existence. She wanted to storm in, to hurl the LeBron sneakers at Richard's smug face, but a vibration in her pocket stopped her. A text from an unknown number. Don't let them hear your footsteps. Look closely before you act. The cryptic warning jolted her, sharpening her focus. Teresa's mind, honed by years of navigating boardrooms, where she was often the only black woman, clicked into gear. She slipped her phone from her blazer, silencing it, and snapped photos of the IPO documents. The camera's soft click masked by Emily's laughter. Each frame captured Richard's lie, a blueprint to steal her 40% stake and rewrite their legacy. Retreating to the entryway, Teresa retrieved the gift box, her fingers trembling, not with fear, but with resolve. She slipped out as silently as she'd entered, the night air cool against her flushed skin. In her car, she drove to a boutique hotel in downtown Palo Alto, the city's tech-fueled pulse a stark contrast to her unraveling world. Checking into a suite, she set the box on the desk, its contents now a bitter irony. The room's minimalist decor, white linens, sleek wood, offered no comfort, but Teresa didn't seek it. She needed clarity. She dialed Grace Miller, a shareholder rights attorney whose ferocity in court was matched only by her loyalty to those she trusted. Grace, a white woman who'd faced her battles against dismissive colleagues, answered on the second ring. "Teresa, what's wrong?" The urgency in Teresa's voice was enough. "Richard's cheating," Teresa said, her tone steady despite the storm within. "He's moved his assistant into our home and plans to cut me out of Phoenix Dynamics. He's rewriting the IPO to claim sole ownership." Grace's response was immediate. "That's fraud. Get me everything you have. Documents, texts, anything. I'm on this." Next, Teresa called Caleb Owens, a financial investigator whose brilliance in untangling tech fraud had earned him respect and enemies. A black man who'd risen through Silicon Valley's elite circles, Caleb had once endured Richard's casual jab, "The guy who counts my money." In a board meeting, a slight Teresa had never forgotten. "I need you to trace Richard's finances," she told him. "He's hiding something big." Caleb's voice was grim but determined. "If he's playing dirty, I'll find the dirt. Meet me tomorrow." Teresa opened her laptop, the screen's glow casting shadows across the suite. She searched for Emily Carter, discovering the young woman's ties to a shady broker, her brother no less. The pieces were falling into place, but the anonymous text nagged at her. Who knew Richard's plans? Who cared enough to warn her? She saved the message, sensing its sender held a key to unraveling this treachery. Standing before the suite's floor-to-ceiling mirror, Teresa studied her reflection. Her tailored blazer, natural curls pinned elegantly, and the fire in her brown eyes belied the ache in her chest. She'd faced worse. Investors who'd questioned her credentials, whispered slurs cloaked as compliments, board members who'd assumed Richard was the brains. Each time she'd proven them wrong, not with anger, but with results. This was no different, only personal. She opened the gift box, the gold sneakers gleaming under the lamplight. They were meant for a man who no longer existed, but they reminded Teresa of her strength. "You want to take everything, Richard?" she whispered, her voice a low vow. "I'll take back what's mine, and more." Closing the box, she turned to her phone, drafting a message to the unknown sender. "Who are you? I'm ready to fight." No reply came, but Teresa didn't need one. The game had begun, and she was no pawn. As dawn broke over Palo Alto, painting the skyline in hues of amber and steel, Teresa stood at the window, the city's ambition mirrored in her resolve. The betrayal had cracked her world, but it hadn't broken her. She would rebuild, not just for herself, but to expose the man who thought he could erase her. The LeBron sneakers, once a symbol of shared dreams, now fueled her solitary mission. Richard had underestimated her, and that would be his undoing. The San Francisco morning draped the city in a misty veil, the kind that softened the edges of skyscrapers and muffled the hum of early commuters. Teresa Wilson sat in a secluded corner of a dimly lit cafe, its worn wooden tables and faint aroma of roasted coffee, a stark contrast to the sterile luxury of her Palo Alto hotel suite. Her tailored navy suit, crisp despite the sleepless night, spoke of resolve, but her eyes, sharp, searching, betrayed the storm beneath. The anonymous text from last night burned in her mind, a lifeline in the chaos of Richard's betrayal. She clutched her phone, waiting for Grace Miller and Caleb Owens, her allies in a fight she hadn't chosen but would not lose. Grace arrived first, her silver hair pulled into a tight bun, her presence commanding despite the early hour. As a shareholder rights attorney, she'd battled corporate giants and their prejudices, once overhearing a colleague mutter, "She's too soft for this game," because she dared to champion clients like Teresa. "I've reviewed the photos you sent," Grace said, sliding into the booth. "The IPO documents are a goldmine. Richard's trying to rewrite history, but he's sloppy. The divorce agreement's been altered. Your 40% stake slashed to 5%. That's fraud. Plain and simple. Teresa nodded, her jaw tight. He thinks I won't notice, she said, her voice low but steady. He's wrong. Caleb Owens slipped in next, his dark overcoat blending with the cafe's shadows. A financial investigator whose genius had cracked open Silicon Valley's dirtiest secrets, he'd endured Richard's condescension, once called the help, in a boardroom jest that stung more than it amused. He set a tablet on the table, its screen glowing with data trails. Richard's moving money offshore, Caleb said, his tone clipped. Small transfers at first, now millions, funneled through shell companies. I've got partial traces, but I need more access to pin him down. Teresa leaned forward, her mind racing. Can you link it to the IPO? She asked. Caleb's eyes gleamed. Give me 48 hours. But that text you mentioned, who sent it? Teresa slid her phone across the table. The cryptic message displayed. Don't let them hear your footsteps. Look closely before you act. Grace frowned, scanning the number. Someone inside Phoenix Dynamics, she said. Someone who knows Richard's game. Teresa's fingers tapped the table, a habit from late-night strategizing with Richard in their garage days. They're risking a lot to warn me, she said. We need to find them. As they spoke, her phone buzzed again. A new message from the same number. Meet me at the Embarcadero, Pier 7, 10 a.m. Come alone. Teresa's pulse quickened, but she kept her expression neutral. I'll handle it, she told Grace and Caleb, who exchanged wary glances but nodded. By 9:45, Teresa stood at Pier 7, the bay's salty breeze tugging at her scarf. The Embarcadero buzzed with joggers and tourists, but she felt exposed, the weight of Richard's betrayal sharpening her senses. A figure approached, tall in a gray hoodie, moving with purpose. Teresa, the woman said, lowering her hood to reveal sharp green eyes and a face etched with resolve. I'm Julia Monroe. Teresa's breath caught. Julia, the former CTO of Phoenix Dynamics, had been a brilliant engineer, ousted by Richard for challenging his ethics. She'd heard Richard dismiss Julia in a board meeting, sneering, "She's just a loudmouth who thinks she's smarter than me." The slight had been personal, cutting at Julia's competence and her identity as a woman who dared to speak up. I sent the text, Julia said, her voice low, eyes scanning the pier. Richard's been planning this for months. He forced me out when I found evidence that he stole code from Neural Nexus, a Latino startup. He's burying you to secure the IPO. Julia handed Teresa a USB drive, its weight heavy with promise. Emails, system logs, proof he's manipulating finances and framing you for the code theft. He's ruthless, Teresa. He thinks you're too soft to fight back. Teresa's grip tightened on the drive, her anger flaring not at Julia, but at the man who'd underestimated them both. Why help me now? She asked, searching Julia's face. Julia's jaw clenched. Because he took my work, my reputation. I won't let him take yours too. They walked along the pier, the city's skyline a backdrop to their conspiracy. Julia detailed Richard's scheme. He'd accelerated the IPO to cash out within 21 days, hiding assets in offshore accounts to starve Teresa's settlement. Worse, he planned to leak a story accusing her of stealing Neural Nexus's AI code, painting her as a disgraced co-founder to neuter her influence. He's betting you'll break, Julia said. He told the board you're too emotional to handle this. The jab, laced with the same racial undertones Teresa had faced for years, stung. She'd heard it before. Investors whispering she was too passionate for leadership, their coded way of dismissing her strength as a black woman. Teresa stopped, facing the water, her mind a battlefield of strategy and resolve. He's wrong, she said, her voice steel. We'll use his plan against him. Find more evidence. Expose him before the IPO. Julia nodded, a spark of admiration in her eyes. I've got access to his private server. Give me a day. I'll get you everything. Teresa met her gaze. Thank you, Julia. This isn't just my fight anymore. Julia's smile was faint but real. It never was. Back at the hotel, Teresa gathered Grace and Caleb in her suite, the USB drive now a cornerstone of their plan. Grace pored over the divorce documents, her pen slashing through Richard's forged clauses. He's violated every fiduciary duty, she said, her voice sharp with indignation. We can freeze his assets, but we need to move fast. Caleb, already deep in his laptop, traced Richard's offshore transfers to a shell company linked to Emily's brother. It's sloppy, he said, a grin breaking through. He didn't expect us to look this hard. Teresa stood at the window, the city's lights a mosaic of possibility. He didn't expect me to fight, she said, her voice a vow. Their strategy took shape. Julia would dig deeper into Richard's server, Caleb would solidify the financial trail, and Grace would prepare legal motions to challenge the divorce and IPO fraud. Teresa's role was to stay visible, to unsettle Richard by re-entering Phoenix Dynamics' orbit. She drove to the company's headquarters, a sleek glass tower she'd helped design. The lobby buzzed with employees, some offering hesitant smiles, others whispering as she passed. What's she doing here? A junior exec muttered, loud enough for Teresa to hear. Her husband's already moved on. The words, dripping with assumption, echoed the slight she'd endured for years. Her contributions diminished, her presence questioned. Teresa strode to her old office, now stripped of her personal touches. A framed photo of her and Richard from their first funding round lay discarded in a drawer. She retrieved a hidden external drive she'd kept for emergencies, her foresight now a weapon. As she left, a security guard eyed her warily, as if her blackness made her an intruder in her own company. She met his gaze, unyielding, and walked out. The drive in her pocket a promise of retribution. In her hotel suite, Teresa stood before the mirror, the USB from Julia and her drive beside the LeBron sneakers. The night's betrayal had carved a wound, but it had also ignited her. They think I'm finished, she whispered, her reflection fierce. They'll learn who I am. The city beyond her window pulsed with ambition, and Teresa Wilson was ready to claim her place in it. The Oakland morning shimmered with the kind of deceptive calm that precedes a storm, the sun casting long shadows across the cracked pavement outside a modest diner. Teresa Wilson sat in a vinyl booth, her tailored blazer a stark contrast to the worn checkered tablecloth. Her eyes, sharp with purpose, scanned the room as she waited for Diego Morales and Sofia Alvarez, the founders of Neural Nexus. The weight of Julia Monroe's USB drive, tucked in her purse, felt like a ticking bomb. Evidence of Richard Bennett's theft of their AI code, a betrayal that mirrored his erasure of Teresa's legacy at Phoenix Dynamics. She sipped her coffee, its bitterness grounding her as she prepared to turn adversaries into allies. Diego and Sofia arrived, their faces etched with the weariness of young entrepreneurs battered by Silicon Valley's cutthroat game. Diego, wiry and intense, slid into the booth first, his dark eyes wary. Sofia, her hair pulled into a tight braid, followed, clutching a tablet. We don't have much time, Diego said, his voice low. Richard promised us a partnership, then stole our code, said we were lucky to get his attention. The jab, laced with condescension, stung Teresa. She'd heard similar dismissals, her brilliance questioned because of her race. He played you, she said, her tone steady but empathetic. He's playing me too, but we can stop him. She laid out Julia's findings. Richard had embedded Neural Nexus's algorithms into Phoenix Dynamics' core platform, planning to pin the theft on Teresa to discredit her before the IPO. He wants to bury us both, she said, meeting Sofia's gaze. But I'm proposing we fight back together, join forces with Phoenix Dynamics, share the IPO profits, and expose Richard's lies. Sofia's fingers tightened around her tablet. Why should we trust you? She asked. You're his wife. Teresa leaned forward, her voice firm. I'm his co-founder, his equal, and he betrayed me too. I built that company from nothing, and I won't let him destroy, or you. Diego's skepticism softened, but he shook his head. We're Latinos in tech. Every door's already half closed. If we go public with this, they'll say we're just troublemakers. Teresa nodded, recognizing the weight of their shared marginalization. I've been the only black woman in boardrooms for years, she said. They'll call us whatever they want, but we'll win by being smarter, not louder. After a tense pause, Sofia spoke. We're in, but we want a formal partnership on equal terms. Teresa extended her hand, sealing the deal with a grip that promised solidarity. Back at her hotel suite, Teresa's phone buzzed with updates from her allies. Caleb Owens, his analytical mind dissecting Richard's financial web, sent a report. $20 million funneled through a shell company controlled by Emily Carter's brother, a broker with a trail of shady deals. It's a house of cards, Caleb texted. One push, and it collapses. Grace Miller, poring over legal documents, uncovered a forged signature on the divorce agreement, slashing Teresa's stake. This is grounds to void the settlement, Grace called to confirm, her voice crackling with urgency. But we need to act before the IPO locks in his gains. Julia, meanwhile, had hacked deeper into Richard's server, finding a damning email chain. He'd instructed Emily to plant evidence linking Teresa to the neural nexus theft, with a media hit piece already drafted. She's a liability, Richard had written, the words a knife to Teresa's core, echoing the slurs she'd faced. Too emotional, too black, too female to lead. Teresa's resolve hardened as she paced the suite, the San Francisco skyline a glittering reminder of the stakes. She needed to confront Richard, to rattle him without revealing her hand. Late that afternoon, she drove to the Palo Alto villa, her heart pounding as she approached the glass and steel fortress she'd once called home. The front door was unlocked, a careless oversight. Inside, the air carried Emily's floral perfume, a foreign invasion. Richard stood in the kitchen, pouring whiskey, unaware of Teresa's presence until she stepped into the light. "Teresa," he said, his voice a mix of surprise and disdain. "What are you doing here?" She held his gaze, her posture unyielding. "Checking on my house," she said, her tone cool. "You've been busy redecorating." Richard's smirk faltered, his eyes narrowing. "You're out, Teresa. This is my world now. Go find a place that suits you better." The implication, racial, cutting, hung between them, a reminder of the investors who'd once told her she didn't fit their vision of a tech leader. Teresa's fingers brushed the USB in her purse, but she kept her expression neutral. "Enjoy it while it lasts, Richard," she said, turning to leave. "It won't be long." His silence followed her out, heavy with unease. That evening, Teresa regrouped with Grace and Caleb at a discreet office in downtown San Francisco. Its bare walls and fluorescent lights a stark contrast to Phoenix Dynamics' opulent headquarters. Julia joined via video call, her face taut with focus. "Richard's planning to leak the neural nexus story tomorrow," she said, sharing her screen to reveal a draft press release accusing Teresa of corporate espionage. "He's meeting a journalist at noon." Grace slammed her pen down. "We counter with the truth, his offshore accounts, the forged divorce papers. File an emergency motion to freeze his assets." Caleb nodded, his laptop open to a spreadsheet tracking Richard's transfers. "I've got enough to tie him to Emily's brother. The SEC will eat this up." Teresa stood, her mind a whirlwind of strategy. "We don't just defend," she said. "We attack. Leak the offshore accounts to a friendly reporter. Get Neural Nexus to go public with our partnership. Let Richard feel the walls closing in." Grace's eyes gleamed with approval. "I know someone, Dana Pierce, a journalist who's been burned by Richard before. She'll run with this." Julia added, "I'll get you more from his server, meeting logs, anything to nail him." Teresa felt a surge of gratitude for these allies, each scarred by their battles against the industry's biases, now united in her fight. As night fell, Teresa returned to the hotel, the city's pulse a rhythm to her determination. She stood before the mirror, her reflection a portrait of resilience. The slights she'd endured, board members questioning her fit, Richard's dismissal of her as pedestrian, fueled her fire. She opened her laptop, drafting an email to Dana Pierce, attaching Caleb's financial summary. "This is bigger than me," she wrote. "It's about truth." The USB drive from Julia sat beside the LeBron sneakers, a symbol of her past dreams now repurposed for her future. "They think I'm done," Teresa whispered, her voice a vow to the empty room. "They'll see what I'm capable of." The city lights glittered beyond her window, a canvas of ambition and betrayal. Teresa Wilson wasn't just fighting for her stake in Phoenix Dynamics. She was reclaiming her place in a world that had tried to erase her. The IPO loomed, a ticking clock, but she was ready. With allies at her side and truth as her weapon, She would expose Richard's cracks and build something stronger from the rubble. The San Francisco dawn painted the city in a steely shimmer, its skyline a jagged ambition that both beckoned and betrayed. Teresa Wilson stood in the quiet of a loft office, its exposed beams and frosted windows shielding her from the media storm brewing beyond. Her charcoal suit, tailored to command, contrasted with the fatigue etched in her eyes after another sleepless night. The USB drive from Julia Monroe, now a vault of Richard Bennett's sins, rested in her hand, a weapon to wield against his campaign to erase her from Phoenix Dynamics. Teresa's resolve, forged in the crucible of betrayal, burned brighter than her exhaustion. Today she would strike back through the press, turning Richard's lies into her leverage. She met Dana Pierce, a black journalist with a reputation for unearthing corporate rot, at a rooftop cafe overlooking the bay. Dana's braided locks caught the morning light, her gaze piercing as she leaned forward. "Richard called me a nosy hack when I asked why you vanished from Phoenix Spotlight," Dana said, her voice laced with defiance. "I knew he was hiding something. Show me what you got." Teresa slid a dossier across the table, compiled by Caleb Owens. Bank records tracing $20 million to offshore accounts linked to Emily Carter's brother. "Richard's stealing from the company he claims to own," Teresa said, her tone steady. "He's framing me for code theft to cover it. This goes public, he's finished." Dana's eyes gleamed. "This'll shake Silicon Valley. But they'll come for you, Teresa. The media loves tearing down women like us." Teresa nodded, unflinching. "Let them try. I'm done hiding." By noon, Dana's article hit the wires, its headline searing: "Phoenix Dynamics CEO siphons millions ahead of IPO." The piece detailed Richard's offshore transfers, backed by Caleb's meticulous data, and hinted at a brewing scandal over stolen code. Social media erupted, with Phoenix Dynamics' stock wavering on pre-market trades. Teresa monitored the fallout from her hotel suite, her phone buzzing with alerts. Grace Miller called, her voice taut with urgency. "The article's working, but Richard's team is prepping a counterattack. They're leaking that hit piece on you, claiming you stole neural nexus code out of spite." Teresa's jaw tightened. "Let them. We've got the truth." She reached out to Henry Clarkson, a key investor whose conservative demeanor masked a ruthless pragmatism. His office, perched in a glass tower, reeked of old money. Leather chairs, mahogany desk, a view that screamed power. Clarkson, a white man in his 60s, greeted Teresa with a thin smile, his eyes appraising her as if she were an anomaly. "I don't like drama, Ms. Wilson," he said, his tone dripping with condescension. "Especially from certain types." The pause, heavy with racial undertones, echoed the slights Teresa had endured. Boardrooms where her ideas were dismissed as too bold for a black woman. She met his gaze, her voice ice. "Drama is your CEO looting your investment, Mr. Clarkson. I have proof he's defrauding you." She handed him a summary of Caleb's findings, her composure a shield against his skepticism. Clarkson's expression shifted, calculation replacing disdain. "If this checks out, we'll talk," he said, dismissing her. Teresa left, her stride unbroken, knowing she'd planted a seed. That evening, Richard struck back with a televised press conference, his tailored suit and practiced charm a mask for his panic. Flanked by Emily, who played the role of wronged ingenue, he stood before a Phoenix Dynamics logo, his voice smooth. "My ex-wife's accusations are a personal vendetta," he said, his eyes glinting with faux sincerity. "She's spreading lies to destabilize our IPO, jealous of our progress." Emily nodded, her blonde hair catching the camera's light. "I've seen her bitterness firsthand," she said, her voice trembling for effect. The broadcast cut to a pundit on a news panel, a white man who smirked. "Women like her, emotional, vindictive, tend to overreact, don't they?" The jab, cloaked in sexism and race, twisted in Teresa's gut as she watched from her suite, her hands clenched. But she didn't falter. She texted Dana, "Keep pushing, we're not done." The media frenzy intensified, splitting public opinion. Tech blogs debated Richard's integrity, while tabloids painted Teresa as a scorned wife. A viral tweet from an anonymous account read, Phoenix's real founder is getting erased because she's black and female. Wake up. Teresa's allies rallied. Julia scoured Richard's server for more leaks, uncovering a memo where he dismissed investor concerns about diversity optics as irrelevant. Grace drafted a motion to freeze Richard's assets, citing the forged divorce papers. Caleb, meanwhile, confirmed the shell company's ties to Emily's brother, texting Teresa, "Got him, ready to drop this on Clarkson." Teresa's next move was bold. She returned to Clarkson's office unannounced, her presence a deliberate challenge. The receptionist, a young white woman, hesitated before buzzing her in, her glance lingering as if Teresa didn't belong. Clarkson, reviewing Caleb's dossier, looked up, his irritation clear. "You're persistent," he said, his tone grudging. Teresa stood tall, her voice unwavering. "I'm protecting your investment. Richard's stealing from you, and I can prove it." She presented Julia's memo and Caleb's latest findings, her argument airtight. Clarkson leaned back, his skepticism cracking. "If this holds, Bennett's out," he said. "But don't expect me to cheer for you." Teresa smiled faintly. "I don't need your applause, just your vote." Back at her suite, Teresa's mind turned to a vision that had taken root amid the chaos. Phoenix Forward, a nonprofit tech hub to empower Black and Latina women in STEM. She sketched a proposal on her laptop, envisioning a center where young women could code, innovate, and dream without the barriers she'd faced. The idea, born from her pain, felt like a lifeline, a way to transform betrayal into purpose. She emailed the draft to Grace, who replied, "This is brilliant. Build it, and we'll fund it." As night cloaked the city, Teresa stood on her balcony, the bay's lights a constellation of possibility. The media war had begun, and Richard's facade was crumbling. She'd faced his lies, Clarkson's prejudice, and the pundits' slurs, each a reminder of the world's eagerness to diminish her. Yet she stood unbroken, her allies' trust a shield, her vision a sword. "You want to fight, Richard?" she whispered, the wind carrying her words. "I'll give you one they'll never forget." The IPO loomed, a battlefield of truth and treachery, and Teresa Wilson was ready to claim her victory, not just for herself, but for those who'd been silenced alongside her. The San Francisco fog hung low, cloaking the city in a spectral haze as Teresa Wilson navigated the crowded lobby of Phoenix Dynamics' annual gala. The glass tower buzzed with the elite of Silicon Valley. Venture capitalists, tech moguls, and journalists, their chatter a veneer over the cutthroat stakes of the impending IPO. Teresa's emerald dress hugged her frame, its boldness a silent defiance against the whispers that followed her. "She's just stirring drama," hissed a white executive to his colleague, his glance at Teresa laced with disdain. She moved with purpose, her heels clicking against marble, clutching a dossier of damning evidence. Julia Monroe's latest haul from Richard Bennett's server. Tonight, she'd turn his trap against him, her resolve afire kindled by betrayal. In her hotel suite that morning, Teresa had reviewed Grace Miller's legal strategy. Richard's team had filed a defamation suit, claiming her leaks to Dana Pierce were malicious lies, and sought to seize her remaining shares as damages. Grace, her eyes blazing over coffee, had uncovered a forged email trail in Julia's data, planted by Emily Carter to frame Teresa for Neural Nexus's code theft. "It's a desperate move," Grace said, her voice sharp. "They're banking on you folding under pressure." Teresa's lips curled into a steely smile. "They don't know me at all." Caleb Owens, joining via video call, added a new piece. Richard had wired $5 million more to Emily's brother's shell company, a reckless escalation. "He's panicking," Caleb said. "We've got him cornered." Teresa's first move was to solidify her alliance with Neural Nexus. She met Diego Morales and Sofia Alvarez at a quiet Oakland warehouse, their startup's makeshift HQ cluttered with servers and whiteboards. Diego's arms crossed, his skepticism palpable. "Going public with you means war," he said, his voice taut. "Latinos like us, we're already targets. They'll say we're just pawns in your game." Teresa met his gaze, her own experience with marginalization grounding her words. "I've been called a token, a diversity hire, a problem," she said. "Richard's counting on us to stay divided. If we stand together, we rewrite the story." Sophia, studying Teresa's earnestness, nodded slowly. We'll sign the partnership, she said, but we want our code credited, publicly. Teresa extended her hand, her grip firm. Done. We're in this together. Back at the gala, the air thrummed with tension as Teresa spotted Emily Carter across the room. Her blonde hair swept into an elegant updo, her smile a practiced mask. Emily's eyes locked onto Teresa, and she sauntered over, her voice dripping with condescension. You think you can win this, don't you? She said, loud enough for nearby guests to turn. This world isn't yours, Teresa. You're out of your league. The barb, laced with the same racial undertones Teresa had endured for years, drew curious stares. She stepped closer, her voice low but lethal. You're wrong, Emily. I built this league, and I'm not leaving. Emily's smirk faltered, her confidence cracking as Teresa turned away, leaving her exposed under the gala's glittering lights. Julia's latest find, a server log showing Emily's direct role in planting the fake email trail, landed in Teresa's inbox mid-event. She forwarded it to Dana Pierce, who was already drafting a follow-up expose. This will gut Emily's credibility, Dana texted back. Publishing at midnight. Teresa's pulse quickened. The timing was perfect. She mingled strategically, charming a skeptical investor with her vision for neural nexus's integration, her poise disarming his doubts. A white board member, overhearing, muttered to another, "She's too aggressive for a woman like her." Teresa caught the words but kept her smile, her dignity a shield against their bias. As the gala wound down, Teresa slipped into a side room to call Grace. "The defamation suit's a bluff," Grace said, her voice steady. "We've filed a counter motion to freeze Richard's assets, citing the forged emails and offshore transfers. The judge will see it tomorrow." Teresa nodded, her mind racing. "We need to keep the pressure on. Dana's article drops tonight, and I'm meeting Clarkson again tomorrow." Grace paused, her tone softening. "You're playing a dangerous game, Teresa. Richard's not just fighting for money, he's fighting for his ego." Teresa's eyes hardened. "Good, let him. That's his weakness." She returned to the gala, her presence now a magnet for whispers. A young black intern approached, her eyes wide with admiration. "I read Donna's article," she said softly. "You're fighting for all of us." Teresa touched her arm, a rare moment of warmth in the night's chill. "We're fighting together," she said, her voice a promise. The intern's nod fueled Teresa's resolve as she left the event, the city's neon glow a backdrop to her next move. In her suite, Teresa reviewed the Phoenix Forward proposal, its pages a blueprint for a tech hub that would empower women like that intern, Black, Latina, and overlooked. She envisioned a space where they could code, create, and lead without the weight of prejudice she'd carried. The idea, born from her pain, was her rebellion against Richard's erasure. She emailed the proposal to a potential donor, a Black philanthropist who'd faced similar slights in the industry, her words bold. "This is our chance to build something they can't take." As midnight struck, Dana's article went live, exposing Emily's role in the forged emails. Social media lit up, with hushed Phoenix fraud trending. Teresa watched from her balcony, the city's pulse syncing with her own. Richard's allies would scramble, but she was steps ahead. She texted Julia, "Keep digging, we're close." Julia's reply was swift. "Found his meeting schedule. He's desperate. Meeting brokers tomorrow." Teresa's lips curved into a determined smile. Richard thought he could trap her, but she was turning his cage into her weapon. Standing before her mirror, Teresa adjusted her dress, the emerald fabric a symbol of her unyielding spirit. These, lights the board members' sneer, Emily's taunt, the industry's constant questioning of her place, only sharpened her focus. She opened the ebony box, the LeBron sneakers glinting under the lamplight, no longer a gift for Richard, but a reminder of her strength. "You thought you could break me," she whispered, her reflection fierce. "Watch me rebuild." The city beyond her window thrummed with ambition, its lights a constellation of her fight. Teresa Wilson wasn't just surviving Richard's betrayal, she was dismantling his empire, piece by calculated piece. The IPO loomed, a battleground where truth would face treachery, and she was armed, not with vengeance, but with the clarity of her worth. The San Francisco skyline loomed through a veil of dawn mist, its glass towers reflecting the city's relentless ambition, as Teresa Wilson stood in a corner office, her silhouette sharp against the panorama. The IPO shareholder meeting, now just 72 hours away, pulsed like a heartbeat in her mind. Her tailored crimson blazer, a deliberate choice to command attention, framed her unyielding resolve as she reviewed a dossier from Caleb Owens. Proof that Richard Bennett planned to dump Phoenix Dynamics shares post-IPO through Emily Carter's brother. Teresa's eyes, alight with strategy, traced the numbers, her fingers brushing the USB drive from Julia Monroe. Now a vault of Richard's unraveling empire. She was no longer the betrayed wife. She was a warrior poised to reclaim her legacy. That morning, Grace Miller had called, her voice taut with urgency. "Richard's bullying of former employees," she said. "He's threatening to sue anyone who speaks to you, claiming you're sabotaging the IPO." Teresa's jaw tightened, recognizing Richard's desperation. "He's scared," she replied, her tone steely. "Good, let him sweat." Caleb's latest find, delivered via encrypted email, detailed Richard's secret deal with brokers to offload $30 million in shares, bypassing board approval. "It's insider trading," Caleb wrote. "We leak this to the SEC. He's done." Julia, relentless in her digital hunt, had uncovered Richard's encrypted calendar, revealing a clandestine meeting with those brokers today. "He's moving fast," Julia texted. "So must we." Teresa's first strike was to confront the board's skepticism head-on. She arranged a private meeting with Henry Clarkson and two other investors, Margaret Klein, a white venture capitalist known for her pragmatism, and David Holt, a black fund manager who'd navigated his battles against bias. The venue, a discreet penthouse overlooking the bay, buzzed with tension as Teresa entered, her presence a challenge to their doubts. Clarkson's greeting was curt, his eyes narrowing. "You're pushing hard, Ms. Wilson," he said, his tone edged with suspicion. "Convince us you're not just settling a personal score." Margaret leaned forward, her voice cool. "The stock's volatile because of your media stunts. Why should we trust you?" Teresa met their gaze unflinching. "Because I built Phoenix Dynamics Foundation, and Richard's looting it. You're losing money while he plays games." She presented Caleb's dossier, her voice steady as she detailed Richard's share-dumping scheme. David, who'd once been dismissed as too urban by a rival investor, nodded slowly, his eyes appraising Teresa's evidence. "This is damning," he said, "but saving the IPO means stabilizing the company. What's your plan?" Teresa laid out her vision. A merger with Neural Nexus to secure their code legally, coupled with a transparent audit to restore investor faith. "Richard's a liability," she said. "I'm your solution." Margaret's skepticism softened, but Clarkson scoffed. "You're ambitious for a woman in your position," he said, the pause heavy with racial undertones. Teresa's smile was razor-thin. "I'm ambitious because I'm the best for the job. You'll see." She left, their silence a grudging acknowledgement of her strength. Back at her hotel suite, Teresa faced a new threat. Paul Hayes, a white board member loyal to Richard, had emailed the staff, warning against disloyalty to the CEO. At a coffee shop meeting, Grace shared a leaked recording of Paul telling Richard, "She's the problem. Women like her, too loud, too pushy, always stir trouble." The words, dripping with sexism and racism, echoed the slights Teresa had endured. Executives who'd questioned her fit for leadership, their coded language a constant barrier. "Paul's rallying the old guard," Grace said. "We need to neutralize him before the vote." Teresa nodded, her mind racing. "Leak the recording to Donna. Let the public see who they are." That afternoon, Teresa drove to Neural Nexus's Oakland warehouse, where Diego Morales and Sofia Alvarez were finalizing their partnership agreement. Diego's hesitance lingered, his voice low. "The press is already calling us opportunists," he said. "If this fails, we're finished." Teresa knelt beside a server rack, her eyes level with his. "I've been called worse. Angry, unfit, a token. Richard wants us to doubt ourselves. We prove him wrong by winning." Sophia signed the contract, her pen a quiet rebellion. "We're ready," she said. Teresa's handshake sealed their alliance, a pact forged in shared defiance. As evening fell, Teresa prepared for her final push. Dana Pierce's latest article, exposing Paul's recording, went viral, sparking outrage online. Teresa Firepall trended alongside Mash Phoenix fraud, eroding Richard's support. Julia texted, Richard's meeting brokers now. Got audio? Want me to leak it? Teresa replied, hold it, we use it at the meeting. Caleb confirmed the SEC had received their anonymous tip about Richard's insider trading, with agents already sniffing around. Grace filed the asset freeze motion, her voice triumphant over the phone. The judge is reviewing it tonight. Richard's trapped. Teresa stood before her suite's mirror, practicing her shareholder speech. Her crimson blazer, a beacon of her authority, framed her unyielding posture. She envisioned the meeting, Richard's smug facade, Paul's sneering loyalty, the board's wavering trust. Each word she rehearsed was a weapon, honed to dismantle their lies. The LeBron sneakers, now a talisman of her resilience, sat on the desk, their gold gleam a reminder of dreams she'd reclaimed. You thought you could silence me, she murmured, her reflection fierce. You'll hear me now. She sat at the desk, refining her speech, her pen slashing through weaker phrases. The Phoenix Forward proposal, now a detailed plan for a tech hub in Oakland, lay beside her, its pages a testament to her vision beyond this fight. She emailed a draft to David Holt, sensing his support could fund it. This is bigger than Phoenix Dynamics, she wrote. It's our future. His reply was swift. Impressive. Let's talk post-IPO. Teresa's heart lifted, her purpose crystallizing. As night deepened, the city's lights pulsed like a living thing, mirroring Teresa's resolve. The shareholder meeting loomed, a crucible where truth would clash with treachery. She'd faced Paul's slurs, Clarkson's prejudice, Richard's desperation, each a test she'd met with unwavering strength. Her allies, Grace, Caleb, Julia, Diego, Sophia, stood with her, their trust a fortress. This is my moment, Teresa whispered, the fog beyond her window swirling like the chaos she'd conquer. The IPO was no longer Richard's triumph. It was her battlefield, and she was ready to claim victory. The San Francisco Conference Center gleamed under a midday sun, its glass facade a mirror to the city's ambition and deceit. Inside, the shareholder meeting of Phoenix Dynamics pulsed with a restless energy, the air thick with the weight of an IPO teetering on the edge. Teresa Wilson stood just outside the boardroom, her crimson blazer a bold declaration of her presence, her eyes alight with a fire forged through betrayal. The dossier in her hand, Julia Monroe's server logs, Caleb Owen's financial trails, and Neural Nexus's affidavit, felt like a loaded weapon, primed to dismantle Richard Bennett's empire. Reporters hovered beyond the glass doors, their cameras a silent threat, while whispers of murdy Phoenix fraud echoed online. Teresa's heart thrummed, not with fear, but with the clarity of a woman who'd turned pain into power. Inside, the boardroom buzzed, a sea of suits and skeptical gazes. Richard stood at the podium, his tailored navy jacket pristine, his smile a practiced mask of control. Phoenix Dynamics stands at a historic moment, he began, his voice smooth, commanding. As sole founder, I've guided us through challenges, including baseless attacks from my former spouse, driven by personal resentment. His words, slick with accusation, drew nods from loyalists like Paul Hayes, whose smug glance at Teresa carried the sting of his earlier slur. Women like her always stir trouble. She stood at the back, her posture unyielding, letting Richard's lies wash over her like a tide she'd soon turn. As Richard outlined his IPO vision, Teresa moved forward, her heels a deliberate rhythm against the polished floor. Heads turned, murmurs rippling through the room. Paul leaned to a colleague, his voice low but audible. What's she doing here? She's got no place in this. The jab, laced with the same racial and gendered disdain she'd faced for years, only sharpened her focus. She caught Henry Clarkson's eye, his expression unreadable but attentive, a shift from his earlier condescension. Margaret Klein, seated beside him, watched with guarded curiosity, while David Holt, the black investor, offered a subtle nod of encouragement. Teresa reached the front, her presence a quiet storm. May I address the board? Teresa asked, her voice clear, cutting through Richard's speech. The room stilled, Richard's smile faltering. This is a closed session, he snapped. But Clarkson raised a hand. She's a 40% shareholder. Let her speak. Teresa stepped to the podium, her dossier open, her gaze sweeping the room. Phoenix Dynamics wasn't built by one person, she began, her tone steady but fierce. I co-founded this company, shaped its strategy, and secured its funding. Richard claims sole credit while hiding millions offshore and stealing code from Neural Nexus, a Latino startup, to inflate our value. Gasps punctuated the silence as she projected Julia's server logs onto the screen. Emails detailing Richard's theft, Caleb's bank records showing $30 million funneled through Emily's brother, and Sofia Alvarez's affidavit confirming their partnership with Teresa. Richard's face reddened, his composure cracking. These are fabrications, he shouted, slamming a fist on the table. She's bitter, trying to sabotage our success. Teresa didn't flinch, her voice rising like a blade. Bitter? No, Richard, I'm truthful. You forged my signature to slash my shares, planned to frame me for your theft, and bullied employees to silence them. She played Paul's recorded slur. Women like her, too loud, too pushy, drawing sharp intakes of breath. Paul shrank in his seat, his arrogance deflated. This is your leadership? Teresa asked, her eyes locking onto the board. A man who lies, steals, and erases his partners? Clarkson leaned forward, his skepticism replaced by unease. These are serious accusations, Ms. Wilson. Can you substantiate them? Teresa slid the dossier across the table, her movements deliberate. Everything's here. Financial trails, server logs, neural nexus testimony. The SEC's already investigating. David Holt flipped through the pages, his nod confirming her credibility. Margaret Klein, her pragmatism overriding doubt, asked, What's your solution? Teresa's vision poured out. Merge with Neural Nexus to secure their code legally, conduct a transparent audit, and delay the IPO to restore trust. Phoenix Dynamics deserves better than a CEO who betrays it. The room erupted in tense debate, board members huddling with advisors. Richard, cornered, tried to rally support, his voice strained. She's manipulating you. This is personal. But his allies wavered, Paul's silence deafening. Emily, seated in the back, rose to leave, her face pale as she realized Richard's fall would drag her down. Teresa caught her eye, her expression not vengeful but resolute. You chose the wrong side, she said softly, her words carrying across the room. Emily fled, her heels echoing in the sudden hush. Clarkson called for a vote, his voice grim. All in favor of removing Richard Bennett as CEO? Hands rose. David, Margaret, 6 others, a decisive 8-2. Richard's face drained of color, his empire crumbling. You're making a mistake, he hissed, but the board ignored him, appointing an interim CEO to oversee the audit. Teresa proposed the Neural Nexus merger, detailing its mutual benefits. David spoke up. This is the leadership we need. The board approved, the room exhaling as the tide turned. As the meeting adjourned, reporters swarmed outside, their questions a cacophony. Richard stormed out, his glare burning into Teresa, but she stood tall, addressing the press. Today, Phoenix Dynamics chose integrity over greed, she said, cameras flashing. We're building a future that honors all who created it. Her words, steady and commanding, silenced the doubters, her presence a rebuke to those who'd questioned her place. Alone in the boardroom, Teresa surveyed the empty chairs, the Phoenix Dynamics logo looming on the wall. She'd faced Richard's lies, Paul's prejudice, the industry's relentless bias, each a battle she'd won not with anger, but with truth. The LeBron sneakers, waiting in her hotel suite, were no longer a gift, but a symbol of her triumph. She stepped to the window, the city's pulse syncing with her own. This isn't your story anymore, Richard, she whispered, her breath fogging the glass. It's mine. Outside, the reporters waited, but Teresa took a moment, her reflection in the window a portrait of resilience. The IPO, delayed but salvaged, would reflect her vision, a company rooted in fairness, not deception. Phoenix Forward, her dream of a tech hub for Black and Latina women, felt closer, its blueprint a beacon of purpose. She'd turned Richard's trap into her victory, not just for herself but for those who'd been silenced beside her. The fight wasn't over, but Teresa Wilson was no longer a shadow in her own story. She was its architect, ready to shape what came next. The Oakland skyline shimmered under a late summer sun, its modest sprawl a canvas of resilience against the tech-glossed arrogance of San Francisco. Teresa Wilson stood on the rooftop of a gutted Palo Alto villa, its skeletal frame a ghost of the life she'd once shared with Richard Bennett. The demolition crew below carted away debris, each shattered beam a symbol of her past, raised to make way for Phoenix Forward, a nonprofit tech hub to empower Black and Latina women. Teresa's sapphire suit, vibrant against the dust, mirrored her unyielding spirit as she envisioned classrooms and labs rising from this ruin. Her eyes, alight with purpose, traced the horizon, her heart anchored by a victory hard-won at the shareholder meeting days ago. In her temporary Oakland office, Teresa had finalized the divorce settlement, securing the villa and half of Richard's hidden assets. Grace Miller, her attorney, had called with the news, her voice triumphant. "The judge saw through his fraud," Grace said. "You've got the house, free and clear." Teresa's decision was swift. Tear it down, rebuild it as a beacon for those who'd been overlooked, like the young women she met at a local STEM workshop. One, a Black teenager named Aisha, had clutched a coding manual, her eyes wide. "They say girls like me don't belong in tech," she whispered. Teresa knelt, her voice firm. "I heard that too. Look at me now. You'll prove them wrong." Aisha's hesitant smile fueled Teresa's mission. The Phoenix Forward groundbreaking ceremony drew a crowd, community leaders, tech allies, and journalists hungry for a redemption arc. Teresa stood at a podium, the villa's wreckage behind her a stark metaphor. "This isn't just a building," she declared, her voice carrying over the hum of anticipation. "It's proof that from loss, we can create opportunity." She shared her story, not the betrayal, but the strength it birthed, her words resonating with the young women in the audience, their faces reflecting her hunger from years ago. Dana Pierce's article, published that morning, framed Teresa as the phoenix rising from Silicon Valley's ashes, amplifying the center's mission. Social media buzzed with Forward and Phoenix Forward, a counterpoint to the fading Phoenix fraud. Julia Monroe, now a consultant for Phoenix Forward, approached Teresa post-ceremony, her green eyes softer than their peer-side meeting months ago. "I misjudged you," Julia said, her voice low. "I thought you'd break under Richard's weight. I'm glad I was wrong." Teresa clasped her hand, a silent reconciliation. "We both carried scars," she said. "Now we're building something better." Julia's nod was a pledge, her technical expertise now shaping the center's labs. Their alliance, forged in shared defiance, felt like a quiet triumph over Richard's divide-and-conquer tactics. Back at Phoenix Dynamics, Teresa met Linda Harris, a white executive with a progressive streak, in a glass-walled conference room. Linda, tapped as interim CEO, extended an offer. Co-CEO, splitting leadership to stabilize the company post-Richard. "I underestimated you," Linda admitted, her tone earnest. "I saw you as Richard's shadow, not the force behind the company. I was wrong." Teresa studied her, wary but intrigued. "I'll consider it," she said, "but Phoenix Forward stays independent, fully funded." Linda agreed, her respect palpable. "You're reshaping this industry, Teresa. We need you." The proposal, a recognition of her worth, stirred a mix of pride and caution in Teresa's chest. Richard's downfall deepened as the SEC tightened its probe, his offshore accounts frozen, his reputation in tatters. Donna's latest expose detailed his bullying of employees, with former staffers now speaking out, emboldened by Teresa's stand. A former intern, a Black woman, told a reporter, "Teresa showed us we don't have to stay silent." Richard, holed up in a rented condo, faced lawsuits from investors, his charm no match for his unraveling lies. Teresa felt no glee, only a quiet resolve. She'd outplayed him, not for revenge, but for justice. At the Phoenix Forward site, Teresa walked through the cleared lot, her boots crunching gravel. Aisha, the teen from the workshop, joined her, clutching a sketch of a coding lab. "Can I help design it?" she asked, her voice tentative. Teresa smiled, handing her a hard hat. "You're already part of it," she said. Aisha's grin, bright against the construction dust, was a glimpse of the future Teresa was building. A world where girls like them weren't dismissed as out of place, as she'd been by board members who'd eyed her blackness with suspicion. In her Oakland office, Teresa refined the center's curriculum, weaving in mentorship for young women facing the industry's biases. A donor, moved by Dana's article, pledged $2 million, texting, "You're doing what I couldn't, breaking barriers." Teresa's vision expanded. Satellite hubs in Chicago, Atlanta, Houston, each a lifeline for those sidelined by tech's elite. She emailed Linda, outlining terms for the co-CEO role, her conditions non-negotiable. Phoenix Forward's autonomy, a seat for Neural Nexus's founders on the board, and a commitment to diversity beyond optics. Linda's reply was swift. "We're aligned. Let's do this." As dust settled, Teresa stood on the villa's former lawn, the LeBron sneakers now displayed in her office as a symbol of reclaimed dreams. The city's hum, a blend of cranes and traffic, mirrored her pulse. She'd faced Richard's treachery, Paul's slurs, the industry's relentless gatekeeping, each a forge for her strength. "You thought you could erase me," she whispered, the breeze carrying her words. "I'm just beginning." The stars emerged, a quiet witness to her transformation. Phoenix Forward wasn't just a building. It was her defiance, her legacy, a promise to Aisha and countless others. The co-CEO's offer, once unthinkable, now felt like a platform to reshape Phoenix Dynamics into a force for equity. Teresa Wilson wasn't just rising from ashes. She was igniting a new dawn, her light too fierce to be dimmed. The Oakland morning unfolded in a golden haze, its warmth softening the edges of the Phoenix Forward Tech Center. A glass and steel beacon rising where a Palo Alto villa once stood. Teresa Wilson stood on the center's rooftop garden, her amethyst dress catching the breeze as she surveyed the bustling campus below. Young women coding in labs, pitching startups in meeting rooms. Dreaming without the barriers she'd shattered. As co-CEO of Phoenix Dynamics and founder of this hub, Teresa's vision had transformed betrayal into a legacy of empowerment. Her eyes, radiant with purpose, traced the skyline, her heart anchored by a life rebuilt on her terms. At a tech conference in San Francisco, Teresa met Marcus Tate, a Black professor whose research on equitable tech education mirrored her mission. His warm baritone cut through the panel's jargon as he praised Phoenix Forward's impact. "You're rewriting the rules," Marcus said later, over coffee in a quiet lounge, his kind eyes meeting hers. "I want to learn from you." Teresa, cautious after Richard's treachery, felt a spark. His respect for her strength, not her title, disarmed her. "It's mutual," she replied, her smile tentative but genuine. Their conversation flowed, weaving through shared passions for justice and innovation, a connection untainted by her past. Back at Phoenix Forward, Teresa guided a tour for donors, her voice resonant as she showcased Aisha's lab design, now a reality. Aisha, the Black teen who'd once doubted her place in tech, presented a coding project, her confidence a testament to the center's impact. A white donor, his skepticism veiled as curiosity, asked, "Can these girls compete in Silicon Valley?" Teresa's response was steel-wrapped in grace. "They're not just competing, they're leading. Watch them." Her words, a quiet rebuke to the biases she'd faced, earned Aisha's proud grin. The donor pledged $1 million, texting later, "You're unstoppable." Phoenix Dynamics thrived under Teresa's co-leadership with Linda Harris, their partnership a model of equity. At a board meeting, Linda presented financials, while Teresa unveiled a global training program for underserved engineers, integrating Neural Nexus's AI to personalize learning. David Holt, now a board ally, nodded approval. "You're making us more than a company," he said. A lingering skeptic, a colleague, murmured to another, "She's too idealistic for this level of ambition." Teresa caught the slight, her gaze steady. "Idealism built this," she countered, her voice slicing through their doubt. The board applauded, her authority cemented. Richard's ghost surfaced briefly, his emailed apology a faint echo of his downfall. "I lost myself," he wrote, acknowledging his betrayal. Teresa read it in her office, the LeBron sneakers on a shelf, a reminder of her journey. She didn't reply. Her silence was a closure earned through triumph, not forgiveness. Marcus, visiting for a workshop, saw the email open on her screen. "Does it change anything?" he asked, his tone gentle. Teresa shook her head, her voice soft but firm. "It confirms I chose right, to move forward." Marcus's nod, warm with understanding, deepened their bond. His presence a balm to old wounds. Phoenix Forward's expansion accelerated, with 10 centers launched nationwide, each a hub for Black and Latina innovators. At the Chicago opening, Teresa cut the ribbon alongside Aisha, now a program mentor. "You're my hero," Aisha whispered, handing Teresa a miniature gold sneaker charm. Teresa hugged her, her eyes misting. "You're mine," she replied, pinning the charm to her lapel. The crowd cheered, Shark and Phoenix Forward trending globally, a symbol of hope born from her pain. Dana Pierce's feature, Teresa Wilson, Architect of Inclusion, framed her as a trailblazer, silencing critics who'd once dismissed her as too bold for a Black woman in tech. That evening, Teresa dined with Marcus at an Oakland bistro, its jazz trio weaving a soulful backdrop. Their relationship, now months deep, balanced passion with partnership. "You're changing lives," Marcus said, his hand brushing hers, "including mine." Teresa smiled, her guard lowered. "You're not so bad yourself," she teased, their laughter a quiet rebellion against her past isolation. He proposed a joint project, Phoenix Forward, partnering with his university to research tech access for marginalized youth. "Let's build it together," he said. Teresa nodded, her heart open to possibilities she'd once feared. In her office, Teresa reviewed expansion plans, her desk cluttered with blueprints and donor letters. A call from Linda confirmed Phoenix Dynamics stock had soared, analysts praising their inclusive vision. "We're stronger because of you," Linda said. Teresa's reply was humble. "We're stronger together." She hung up, her gaze falling on the sneaker charm, a talisman of her resilience. The industry's slights, doubts about her fit, coded jabs at her race, had forged her, not broken her. "You thought I'd fade," she whispered, the city's lights beyond her window a constellation of her triumph. "I'm just getting started." At the 10th Center's opening in Houston, Teresa and Marcus stood side by side, their shared vision tangible in the gleaming labs. A Latina teen, clutching a laptop, approached. "I want to be like you," she said. Teresa handed her a gold sneaker pin, her voice warm. "You already are." Marcus squeezed her hand, his pride palpable. The crowd roared, the ribbon falling. A new chapter born. Teresa's heart swelled, not with vengeance, but with purpose, her legacy a lighthouse for those navigating tech's stormy seas. As night fell, Teresa stood alone on the Houston Center's balcony, the city's hum a rhythm of renewal. Phoenix Forward was her defiance, her dream, a world where Aisha and others wouldn't face the biases she'd conquered. Her co-CEO role, once a battleground, was now a platform to reshape an industry. Marcus, her partner in love and mission, offered a future she embraced without fear. Teresa Wilson wasn't defined by Richard's betrayal. She was the architect of her destiny, her light a guide for generations to come. Thank you for joining us on Teresa Wilson's incredible journey in Phoenix Forward. We hope her story of resilience and triumph inspired you. What did you think of Teresa's transformation? Share your thoughts in the comments below and tell us where you're tuning in from. We'd love to hear your perspective. Your support means the world, so don't forget to subscribe for more stories that ignite the spirit. Until next time, keep chasing your light. See you soon.